I never thought my life would reach a point where I'd feel like a stranger in my own home. But maybe that's how distance grows. Slowly, quietly, like winter creeping into Ohio. You don't notice it at first. A colder morning here, an extra jacket there. Until one day you wake up, and the world feels frozen. My story begins on a gray morning in Maplewood, Ohio, the kind of small town where everyone knows everyone, and secrets don't stay secret for long. The sun hadn't fully risen yet. A soft layer of fog hugged the fields outside my kitchen window. I stood there, my hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee that had already gone lukewarm. I didn't feel like reheating it. I didn't feel like doing much of anything. My children, Emily and David, were still asleep upstairs. Or at least I assumed they were. We weren't exactly talking a lot these days, and mornings had become strangely silent. When they were younger, they would run down these same wooden stairs barefoot, laughing, begging me to make pancakes before school. Those mornings felt like a lifetime ago. Back then I used to wake up excited. I would pack their lunches, cute little sandwiches cut into hearts and stars, braid Emily's hair, and tie David's shoelaces because he always did them too loose and tripped over them. They needed me, and I was proud of that. But somewhere between then and now, I became invisible. I leaned against the counter and sighed. Maybe the problem was me. Maybe I held on too tightly for too long. I turned when I heard footsteps on the staircase, and there she was, Emily, my 20-year-old daughter, her hair pulled into the same messy bun she had been wearing for months. But this time she didn't smile when she saw me. She didn't say, "Good morning, Mom," the way she used to. She barely looked at me at all. "Hey," I whispered, offering a small smile. She brushed past me. "I'm running late." Her tone wasn't harsh, just cold. Cold in a way that stung harder than anger ever could. She grabbed an apple, her backpack, and walked toward the door. No hug, no goodbye, not even a glance. The door clicked shut. A silence filled the house, deep and hollow, the kind that settles in your chest like dust. I always used to tell myself, kids grow up. It's normal. But deep down I knew this wasn't normal. Not for us. Not after everything I did for them. Sometimes at night, when the house was quiet, I would lie awake and try to figure out when it all changed. Was it when their father left? Was it when I had to work extra shifts? Was it when they started college and found new lives I wasn't part of? Or maybe I just wasn't enough anymore. 2 hours later, I was sweeping the living room when my son David came downstairs. He didn't notice I was in the same room. He didn't even glance my way. He went straight to the fridge, grabbed a soda, and sighed loudly when he didn't find what he wanted. "You could have told me we were out," he snapped. I turned confused. "Out of what?" "Gatorade. You know I always drink the blue one before gym." I swallowed. "Well, you didn't tell me you needed more." He rolled his eyes. "Mom, can you please just keep track of stuff?" Track of stuff. Like I was a housemaid, not his mother. "I'll buy it later today," I said softly. Instead of saying thank you, he muttered under his breath and walked away. Just like that. As if kindness was too heavy for him to lift. When the door slammed behind him, I felt my chest tighten. I sat down slowly on the couch. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, but from realization. My children didn't treat me like a mother anymore. Not even like a person. To them I had become what? A cook? A cleaner? A woman who lived with them but didn't matter? I closed my eyes and whispered a prayer under my breath, something my mother used to say. "God, soften their hearts before mine shatters." By noon I forced myself to do something productive. I walked outside and stood on the porch. The air smelled like damp soil and pine trees. Ohio had a way of holding onto its earthy scent no matter the season. Across the street, Mrs. Henderson, my elderly neighbor, was watering her flowers. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the watering can. "Morning, dear," she called out. I crossed the road and helped her steady the can. "You're a blessing," she smiled. "My son promised he'd come visit last week, but he's always busy." I smiled sadly. "I understand," I said softly. "I really do." She studied my face for a moment. "You look tired, sweetheart." I tried to laugh it off. Just one of those mornings. But Mrs. Henderson wasn't convinced. "Your children treating you all right?" she asked. The question hit harder than I expected. I looked at her tiny fragile hands, at the loneliness in her eyes. I wondered if she saw the same thing in me. "They're growing up," I said. It was the safest answer, not the truest one. Mrs. Henderson placed her hand gently on my arm. "Growing up is fine," she said quietly. "Growing apart, that's the part that breaks a mother." Her words sliced clean through my heart. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. Instead, I hugged her, not because she needed it, but because I did. When I returned home, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. I made myself lunch, a simple turkey sandwich, but halfway through eating it, I heard Emily's voice from upstairs. She was on the phone. "Yeah, she's being dramatic again. I swear, sometimes I feel like I'm living with an elderly roommate, not a mom." I froze. An elderly roommate. That's what I was now? My fork slipped from my fingers. The words traveled through the walls like knives, each one sharper than the last. "I don't know," Emily continued. "She acts like we're supposed to revolve our lives around her. Like we owe her something." My heart stopped. Owe her something. I had given them everything. Every breath. Every dream. Every sacrifice. Everything. Now, I was nothing. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just sat there, staring at the table as tears slowly blurred my vision. I don't remember how long I sat like that. But eventually I stood up and walked outside because the walls in that house suddenly felt too tight, too heavy, too full of memories that hurt. I sat on the porch steps hugging my knees. The breeze felt cold against my skin. Or maybe I was cold from the inside. In the distance I heard a train passing. The sound echoed across Maplewood like a lonely cry. My mind whispered a thought I never imagined I'd think. Maybe they'd be happier without me. I buried my face into my hands. What had I done wrong? Was loving them too much a crime? Was sacrificing everything a mistake? Sometimes when love isn't appreciated, it starts to feel like a burden. And that's when the heart begins to break. It was around 5 p.m. when David came home. He walked right past me on the porch without acknowledging me. "No, hi, Mom." "No, how was your day?" Just silence. He opened the door, then paused. "Did you buy my Gatorade?" I didn't answer immediately. I was swallowing a storm inside me. "David," I whispered, "can we talk?" He sighed loudly, impatiently. "Mom, not right now. I'm tired." "But we haven't." "Mom," he snapped, his voice sharp. "Why do you always make everything an emotional moment? Just give us space." Give us space? I had been giving them space for years. Too much space. Space so wide they forgot I existed in it. He walked inside and shut the door. I stayed outside. And I cried. Not loudly. Just silently. The kind of crying that drains you from the inside. That night, something inside me shifted. I don't know what it was exactly, but I felt it. A tiny crack. A small fracture. A realization that hurt so deeply I could barely breathe. My kids didn't see me anymore. Not as a mother. Not as a person. Not even as someone worth talking to. I went to my bedroom and sat in the dark. For the first time in my life, I felt unwanted, unneeded, unloved, and maybe, just maybe, I started to wonder if it was time for me to disappear from their daily lives, to step back, to quietly pack my things, and leave. Not because I didn't love them, but because they clearly didn't love me back. At least not anymore. And that realization was the most painful part of all. I woke up before the alarm, the same way I usually did, long before anyone else in the house even thought about opening their eyes. The street outside was still dark, and the faint orange glow of the porch light slipped through the blinds in thin lines across the carpet. I rubbed my forehead, feeling the familiar heaviness sitting right behind my eyes, that quiet ache that came from too little sleep and too many responsibilities. I pushed the blanket aside and sat up slowly. The house felt colder than usual, the kind of cold that crept into your bones if you let it. I wrapped my arms around myself for a moment, listening to the silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that reminded you of everything that still needed to be done. Another day. Another list of things nobody would ever notice. I moved to the hallway, careful not to wake anyone. My socks slid softly on the wooden floor as I headed for the kitchen. The house smelled faintly of last night's pasta, because of course nobody bothered to take out the trash after dinner, no matter how many times I reminded them. I opened the fridge and pulled out the things for breakfast. Milk, eggs, bread, a few strawberries that were starting to look sad. I set them on the counter and took a deep breath before turning on the stove. The pan sizzled as the butter melted, filling the kitchen with warmth. I whisked the eggs gently, trying not to think about the conversation I overheard last night, the one that kept replaying in my head. My own daughter saying to her friend, "Ugh, my mom gets mad over everything. She doesn't understand anything." After everything I had done for her. Stung. More than I wanted to admit. I didn't blame her, not fully. Teenagers don't see sacrifices. They only see rules, boundaries, restrictions. They don't see the nights you stay awake worrying about them, or the dreams you crush inside your own chest so they can chase theirs. But it still hurt. I poured the eggs into the pan, and the quiet sizzle pulled me back into the moment. A moment that belonged only to me and the sound of cooking breakfast. No gratitude. No soft thanks, Mom. Just routine. Just responsibility. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, slow and heavy. My husband, Mark, appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Morning," he mumbled. "Morning," I replied quietly. He walked straight to the coffee machine, grabbed a mug, and poured himself a cup. Automatically. Not once looking at me. Not once asking how I was. Not once offering to help. He sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, lost in whatever world existed behind the screen. I watched him for a second, wondering when we stopped being partners and became roommates who happened to share a last name. "When are you picking up the groceries?" he asked suddenly. "I thought you were doing that today," I said, placing a plate of eggs in front of him. "No, I've got work. And then the guys want to watch the game," he replied, barely looking up. "Right," I whispered. "Of course." I turned back to the stove just as I heard another pair of footsteps, lighter this time. My daughter, Emma. She walked in with her hair in a messy bun, wearing her oversized hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder. "I'm late," she said, grabbing a pancake off the plate before I could even put it on the table. "It's hot, be careful," I said. "I know," she muttered. "Not thank you. Not good morning. Just I'm late." She grabbed her shoes and rushed toward the door. I followed her, holding out her lunchbox. "Emma, you forgot this." She didn't even turn around, just stuck her hand out blindly, grabbed the lunchbox and said, "Okay, bye." The door shut behind her before I could say anything else. I stood there for a moment, the quiet ringing in my ears. Not the peaceful kind, the lonely kind, the kind that reminded you how invisible you had become in your own home. Behind me, Mark sighed loudly. "You should have woken her earlier," he said. I closed my eyes. The familiar sting settled deep inside my chest. "Yeah," I whispered. "I guess I should have." He left for work shortly after, the door shutting again. The house grew still, silent, and empty. The kind of empty that didn't feel restful, just hollow. I leaned against the counter, letting out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. The kitchen was still warm from cooking, but it didn't comfort me. Not today. Today the weight felt heavier, like someone had added stones to my shoulders overnight. I looked out the kitchen window at the quiet street. The sky was lightening now, streaks of soft pink blending with the early morning blue. I had always loved sunrise, but somewhere over the years I stopped watching it for myself and started watching it because it marked the beginning of everyone else's needs, never my own. My phone buzzed on the counter. Picked it up. A message from my son, Leo. "Mom, can you drop my project off at school?" I forgot it. Of course he forgot it. Of course he needed me to rescue him. Of course I would do it. Because that's what mothers do. I grabbed my keys, slipped on my shoes, and walked out the door. The cold morning air hit my face, sharp and fresh. I stood there for a moment, closing my eyes. When was the last time someone asked me how I was feeling? When was the last time someone noticed that I hadn't slept properly in months? When was the last time someone held me and said, "You're doing a good job. I see you"? I couldn't remember. I got in the car, started the engine, and rested my forehead against the steering wheel for a few seconds before pulling out of the driveway. Driving down the quiet street, I replayed Emma's words again. She doesn't understand anything. Maybe one day she would know. Maybe one day she would understand the depth of a mother's love. The silent, steady, unending kind. The kind that sacrifices without applause. The kind that gives and gives even when it is empty. But today I was just tired. So tired. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel as I turned onto the main road, and somewhere deep inside me, a small whisper rose. Things can't stay like this. But I didn't know yet that everything in my life was about to change, faster than I could ever imagine. Forever. The drive to Leo's school felt strangely long, even though it was barely 15 minutes. Maybe it was because my mind wouldn't stop spiraling through thoughts I didn't want to think. The sky had fully brightened now, that pale early morning blue that always reminded me of winter creeping in. I pulled into the school parking lot, exhaling slowly as I parked near the office entrance. I grabbed his project from the passenger seat, a model solar system he'd spent barely 2 hours on, but somehow I spent half the night fixing because the styrofoam planets wouldn't stay glued. I walked into the school building, the smell of floor cleaner and old textbooks filling the hallway. The receptionist, a woman named Sarah who always wore bright sweaters, smiled at me. "Forgotten project again?" she said gently. I forced a smile. "You know how it is." She nodded, her eyes soft. I wondered for a moment if she could see it. The exhaustion, the heaviness, the loneliness I carried like extra weight on my back. But she just stamped the slip and waved me through. As I headed back to my car, I caught my reflection in the glass door for a moment. My hair slightly frizzy, eyes tired, a face that had aged faster than it should have. Is this what being a mother was supposed to look like? Always giving, never receiving. I shook the thought off and drove home. The house was still quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. I placed my keys on the table, took a deep breath, and started doing what I always did when the silence became too loud. I cleaned. I washed the dishes, wiped the counters, folded the blankets in the living room, picked up socks from the floor, gathered empty snack wrappers nobody admitted to eating. Every little chore felt like a reminder of my invisibility. When I reached the laundry room, I saw a pile of clothes that definitely wasn't there last night. I sighed and started sorting everything automatically. Mark's shirts, Emma's hoodies, Leo's gym clothes, every piece smelling like their world, and none of it feeling like mine. I opened the dryer to take out a warm load of laundry, but instead of the usual smell of fabric softener, I caught a different scent. Cologne. Not ours. A sharp, expensive cologne I didn't recognize. I froze. My heart lurched just a little, like something inside my chest tugged in the wrong direction. I picked up the shirt inside the dryer. A men's shirt. Not Mark's. I knew his style, every pattern, every color. This wasn't his. I held it up. It was a darker blue, a brand he would never buy. He hated spending money on clothes. This belonged to someone else. My stomach tightened. Why was it here? Who put it here? Who wore it? My mind raced, but before I could think deeper, I heard the front door unlock. My breath caught. Emma stepped inside, earlier than expected. She froze when she saw me holding the shirt. Her face drained of color. "What's that?" she asked quickly. "I was about to ask you the same thing," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes darted to the shirt and then away. "It's nothing. Just something a friend left." "A friend?" I repeated quietly. "Yeah. Can you just put it away?" she snapped, grabbing it from my hand. I stared at her, trying to read her expression. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. She was anxious, restless, hiding something. "Emma," I said carefully, "are you okay?" "I'm fine," she replied too fast. "It's not a big deal." But her voice trembled. Just slightly, just enough for a mother to notice. "Whose shirt is that?" I asked again, more firmly this time. She pressed her lips together and shook her head. I said, "It's nothing, Mom. Just drop it." She brushed past me, stuffing the shirt into her backpack, breathing hard like she was afraid. Afraid of what? I followed her down the hallway. "Emma," I said softly, "talk to me, please. I'm your mother." She turned, her eyes glossy with frustration and something else, fear. "You don't understand anything," she shouted. The same words as last night, except this time they cut deeper. She stormed into her room and slammed the door. The sound echoed through the house, rattling something inside me. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the closed door, feeling my chest tighten. I knew teenagers pushed their parents away. I knew emotions ran high. I knew things could be dramatic. But this was different. This felt like a warning. This felt like the floor shifting beneath my feet. I reached for the doorknob slowly, but as I raised my hand, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. My stomach dropped when I opened it. "You need to keep a closer eye on your daughter." Another buzz. A second message. "She's getting involved with people who don't care about her safety." My hands trembled. The room suddenly felt smaller. The air felt heavier. Every motherly instinct inside me started screaming. I looked back at Emma's door. My daughter wasn't just distant. She wasn't just ungrateful. She wasn't just moody. She was in trouble. Deep trouble. And I didn't even know how much danger she was already in, or what price I was about to pay to save her. The moment I read that message, the world around me seemed to tilt. Just slightly, but enough for me to feel it in my bones. My ears rang with the deep, instinctual alarm only a mother could understand. I stared at the phone, hoping it was some kind of mistake, a wrong number, a prank. But deep down, I knew better. My hands felt cold as I reread the texts. "You need to keep a closer eye on your daughter. She's getting involved with people who don't care about her safety." Every word felt like a stone dropping straight into the center of my chest. I looked again at Emma's bedroom door, closed, silent, impenetrable. That blue shirt hidden in her backpack. Her trembling voice. Her fear. Something had wrapped itself around her life without me noticing. And that truth stung more than anything else. I swallowed hard and forced my voice to be steady. "Emma? Sweetheart. Can you open the door?" Nothing. Just silence. I waited, hoping she'd soften, but all I heard was her muffled breathing through the door, fast and uneven, like she was trying not to cry. I placed a hand on the wood. "Please, talk to me." A beat of silence. Then her voice, raw, irritated, exhausted. "Mom, can you just leave me alone? Please." The please wasn't gentle. It wasn't respectful. It was desperate, and something about that scared me even more. I stepped back slowly, letting her have space, even though every part of me wanted to stay, wanted to break the door open, wanted to demand answers. But that's not how you reach a child who's already slipping away. That's how you make them run faster. I walked to the living room and sat on the couch, my phone tight in my hand. My heart felt like it was beating from somewhere near my throat. I typed back carefully. "Who is this? What are you talking about?" The message sent instantly, that tiny blue bubble floating like a lifeline. Seconds passed. Then a full minute. Nothing. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. Then suddenly, buzz. A new message. "Check her social circle. Especially the new ones." Another message right after. "She's meeting people behind your back." My throat tightened. I texted again quickly. "Are you a friend? Are you trying to warn me? How do you know her?" 3 messages. 3 chances for answers. I watched as the dots appeared. That tiny typing indicator that always made conversations feel urgent. But then, the dots vanished, and nothing else came. I tried calling the number. It rang once, then silence. Then, "The number you are trying to reach is no longer in service." The kind of message that felt almost intentional. I set my phone down slowly, my fingers trembling. It wasn't panic yet, just a cold dread spreading through my veins. Who would send something like this? Why? And why now? I closed my eyes and exhaled long and slow, trying to steady the storm in my chest. After a moment, I stood and walked toward the kitchen, needing something, water, tea, anything to ground myself. I filled a glass and leaned against the counter, taking slow sips as my thoughts spiraled. What new people? Who had she been spending time with lately? I replayed the last few weeks. The late-night whispers on her phone. The sudden change in her mood. The way she pulled away from me like I was the enemy. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. The moment felt heavy, suffocating, as if the air in the house shifted. Then suddenly, the front door opened. I jolted slightly, but it was just Mark, walking in earlier than expected. He dropped his keys on the table and stretched. "You okay?" he asked casually. I blinked at him. Was I okay? Not even remotely. I started, then closed my mouth. He was already opening the fridge. "What's for dinner?" I stared at him. A stranger just warned me that our daughter was in danger, and the first words out of his mouth were about food. "Mark," I said slowly, "something's wrong with Emma." He froze for a moment, a sandwich halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean wrong?" I told him about the shirt, the fear on her face, the text from the unknown number. His eyes narrowed, but not with concern, with irritation. "Someone's messing with you," he said. "You're overreacting. You always overreact." I felt the words hit me like a slap, not because it was new, but because he said it at the moment I needed support the most. "I'm not overreacting," I whispered. He took a bite of his sandwich, shrugged, and said, "Kids do dumb things. She'll grow out of it." Grow out of it? Grow out of what? This wasn't about mood swings or typical teenage rebellion. This was fear. Real fear. "Mark," I said again, more urgent now, "someone warned me she's meeting dangerous people." "And you believe them?" he said dryly. "Yes," I whispered. He sighed loudly, walked past me, and grabbed the remote. "Honestly, I think you're just stressed. You need to calm down." Calm down? My daughter was in trouble. Someone out there knew something about her that I didn't. And I was supposed to calm down? I stood there, feeling the kind of loneliness that only exists in marriages where the love has thinned out quietly, like smoke escaping through a crack in the window. I felt myself trembling, not with fear anymore, but with anger. The simmering kind. The kind that rises when a mother realizes she's the only one fighting for her child. I went back to Emma's door. Knocked softly. "Sweetheart, dinner will be ready soon," I said, even though I hadn't cooked anything yet. I just needed her voice. Any voice. Silence. I tried again. "Emma, can you open the door? I need to see you." Still nothing. I leaned my forehead on the door, closing my eyes. And then, through the silence, I heard it. A soft, broken sob. She was crying. Quietly. Desperately. Trying to muffle the sound, but mothers hear everything. "Emma." My voice cracked. Her sobs stopped instantly, like she didn't want me to know. But I already knew. She wasn't okay. And whatever she was tangled in, it was pulling her deeper, faster, and harder than I realized. I stepped back, heart pounding. This wasn't the beginning of a problem. This was the middle of one. And I still didn't know who or what was on the other side of it. But I was about to find out. Sooner than I ever expected. By late afternoon, the house had settled into a strange, unnatural quiet. The kind that feels heavier than noise. The kind that makes your ears ring because silence shouldn't feel this loud. I kept checking my phone every few minutes, hoping, no, praying, that the unknown number would message again. Anything. A clue. A warning. Something to help me understand what was happening to my daughter. But nothing came. Not a single text. Just emptiness. A reminder that someone out there knew something I didn't. And they weren't going to save Emma for me. They were only going to point toward the danger, then disappear. By the time the sun dipped low and the sky faded to that warm, golden-orange glow, I still hadn't heard a word from her. Her door stayed shut. No footsteps. No chatter. No music. Nothing. Every instinct inside me twisted tighter. I made dinner. Something simple, pasta again, but my hands shook as I stirred. Mark watched the game in the living room, completely unconcerned, laughing occasionally at the commentators, as if absolutely nothing unusual was happening. At one point I called out, "Dinner's ready." He didn't answer. I had to go stand in front of the TV and repeat myself. Then he paused the game with an annoyed sigh, like I'd interrupted something important. He sat at the table. Emma didn't come. I waited and waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Then I walked down the hallway and knocked gently. "Emma, sweetheart, dinner is on the table. Please come eat something." Silence. I placed my hand on the door, lowering my voice. "I'm not mad at you. I'm worried. I just need to know you're okay." Nothing. I pressed my ear to the door, listening for movement. Still nothing. My heart began pounding so loudly I could hear it inside my skull. I reached for the doorknob, it was locked. I swallowed hard. Emma. My voice broke. I knocked again, harder this time. Still no response. Something inside me cracked. A silent panic I couldn't mask this time. Emma, open the door. Please. My voice was trembling now. Sweetheart, open it. You're scaring me. Finally, I heard something. A small shifting sound. Faint. Like someone wiping their face, clearing their throat. Then her voice, so quiet I almost missed it. I'm not hungry. Not angry. Not annoyed. Just defeated. Like her spirit was tired. I closed my eyes. Can I come in? Long pause. No. A whisper. A fragile breaking whisper. And something about that whisper sent a cold wave through me. Fear curling around my heart like a fist. I swallowed. Okay, I said softly. I left a plate for you on the counter. Just please eat when you can. I stepped away, but my feet felt like they were sinking into the floor. When I returned to the kitchen, Mark had already finished eating and placed his empty plate in the sink, without rinsing it, without saying a word, like nothing was happening, like we weren't raising a daughter who suddenly felt like a stranger. I washed the dishes mechanically, letting the warm water run over my hands. But my mind wasn't in the kitchen. It was behind that locked door. It was replaying the text messages, the shirt, the sobbing, the fear. I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear Mark walk in. Is she still being dramatic? He asked casually, pouring himself another drink. I stiffened. She's not being dramatic. She's upset. She's a teenager, he muttered. It's normal. No, I whispered. Not like this. He rolled his eyes and walked away. I wanted to scream, not because of the danger, not because of Emma's silence, but because I was alone in this. Completely, painfully alone. Night came fast. The kind of night where the air feels heavy and the streets look darker than usual. I checked on Emma again around 10 p.m. Same locked door. Same quiet. But as I stood in the hallway, the sound of her sniffing reached me. She was crying again. Quiet, careful sobs she didn't want anyone to hear. I pressed my hand against the door. I'm right here, sweetheart, I whispered. I'm not leaving. Whatever it is, we'll fix it. She didn't respond, but the sobbing stopped, and the silence that followed hurt even worse. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the room lit only by the soft glow of the street lamp outside. Every few minutes I checked my phone. Still nothing. No update. No explanation. Around 2:17 a.m., just as my eyes finally began to feel heavy, my phone lit up. A message. From the same unknown number. My breath caught as I grabbed it, hands trembling. The message was short. Terrifyingly short. She's not safe. And neither are you. My blood ran cold. Another buzz. A second message. They're watching the house. I sat up in bed so fast the blanket fell off. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked toward the dark window, my breath catching in my throat. Watching the house. Who? Why? What did they want? What did they want with her? I shook Mark awake. Mark, wake up. Look. He groaned. What? I showed him the messages. His eyes narrowed. He grabbed the phone, sat up straighter. What the hell is this? I don't know, I whispered, voice shaking. But whoever it is, they said Emma isn't safe. He stood quickly, panic flickering across his face now. Finally some reaction. He walked to the window, pulled the curtain back just a few inches and peered outside. What do you see? I asked, my voice trembling. He paused, leaned closer. Then he whispered, there's a car parked across the street. So, I whispered back, terrified of the answer. It's been there since earlier today, he said slowly. I thought a neighbor had guests, but no one ever got out. My entire body went cold. And look, he pointed. A silhouette inside the car. Person. Just sitting there. Facing our house. Not moving. Not leaving. Watching. Watching us. Watching her. I staggered back a step, my hand over my mouth. Mark dropped the curtain. "What do we do?" he whispered. I didn't know. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't teen trouble. This wasn't attitude. This wasn't drama. This was danger. Real danger. And whatever Emma had gotten herself into, it was already too big for her to escape alone. And now, it had come to our doorstep. Emily stood at the kitchen sink long after everyone had finished dinner. The house was quiet, except for the dull hum of the refrigerator and the occasional drip-drip from the old faucet she kept telling Michael to fix. Her hands were submerged in warm, soapy water, but her mind was somewhere far away. She had done everything today. Packed the kids' lunches, dropped them at school, worked her entire shift at the retirement home, picked up groceries, cooked dinner, cleaned the living room, helped Olivia finish her science project, washed the uniforms for tomorrow. And Michael? He came home, ate, barely spoke, and went straight to the couch with his phone. Emily glanced toward the living room doorway. There he was, scrolling, laughing at some video, completely oblivious to the woman who had carried the weight of their entire world on her shoulders today. A silent ache bloomed in her chest. She didn't want a medal. She didn't want dramatic praise. She just wanted something. A small thank you. A moment of "I see you." That was all. But tonight she got nothing. And maybe that's why this night felt heavier than the others. The question that broke her. As she wiped the counter, Olivia walked in holding her science poster. "Mom, can you help me glue the last part? Dad said he's tired." Emily smiled, but something inside her twisted. "Tired?" she repeated softly. She didn't mean to sound bitter. She didn't even recognize her own voice. Olivia nodded innocently. "Yeah. He said he had a long day." Emily stared at her daughter, and a strange warmth pooled in her eyes. A long day. Michael had had a long day. Emily didn't trust herself to speak. She took the glue stick and knelt beside Olivia at the table. As they worked, Olivia glanced at her mother's face. "Mom, you look sad." Emily swallowed hard. "I'm okay, sweetheart." But even a child could hear the lie. The moment she couldn't hide anymore. After Olivia went to bed, Emily walked to the living room and stood in front of Michael. He didn't look up. Not until she spoke. "Do you ever notice how hard I try?" Michael blinked slowly, confused. "What?" Emily's voice trembled, something rare for her. "Do you see me anymore?" Michael lowered his phone, baffled. "Emily, where is this coming from?" She exhaled shakily, her words soft but devastating. "From years of doing everything and feeling invisible while I do it." There it was. The truth she had swallowed for so long finally slipped out. Michael stared at her, genuinely startled, as if he never expected quiet Emily to ever express pain. Like many men, he assumed silence meant peace. He never once imagined it meant exhaustion. Her breaking point. Emily didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She didn't cry loudly. Her hurt came out in a whisper. "I'm not asking for the world, Michael. I'm asking for a moment. A little appreciation. A little help. A little you matter." She paused. "Because I'm tired. And I'm sad. And I feel like I'm living in this house alone." The last word shattered something inside him. Michael finally stood, not because he understood, but because he realized he was losing the one person who held this family together. "Emily, I didn't know." "You didn't try to know," she replied. And for the first time since they got married, she walked past him without waiting for his reaction. She needed space. She needed air. And she needed to finally admit to herself that being a mother didn't mean being unappreciated. That night, Emily sat on the porch in the cold New York air, wrapped in a blanket, watching her own breath drift into the darkness. She felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Her own hurt. And she finally let herself acknowledge it. Emily barely slept. The porch had been freezing last night, but somehow the cold felt more comforting than the emptiness she felt inside the house. When she finally came in, Michael was asleep on the couch. Phone in hand, TV still glowing in the dark room. She didn't bother covering him with a blanket. Not this time. A morning that felt different. At 6 a.m. her alarm buzzed like usual, but today, she didn't jump up. She just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. For years, her mornings had been automatic. Make breakfast, pack lunches, wake the kids, start the day. But today her heart felt too heavy to move. For the first time in a long time, Emily wondered, who would take care of all this if I stopped? The thought scared her, not because the family would struggle, but because she realized no one even noticed how much she held together. Michael's attempt. The bedroom door creaked, and Michael stepped in slowly, unsure of his place. He wasn't used to approaching Emily like this. "Hey," he whispered gently. Emily didn't answer. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his hands together as if trying to warm himself or gather courage. "About last night." He paused, searching for the words. "I didn't realize you felt that way." Emily blinked, still silent. He continued, stumbling a little. "I know I take things for granted sometimes. I know you carry more than you should. And I'm sorry if I made you feel unappreciated." His words weren't wrong, but they weren't enough. She finally spoke, her voice low and tired. "I don't need a sorry, Michael. I need change." He looked down. "But I'm trying." "Trying is different from caring," she replied softly. The words hit him harder than anything she had said before. The kids noticed. As Emily went to the kitchen, she found Olivia and Mason already sitting at the table, quietly eating cereal. No bickering, no jokes, just silence. "Why are you two so quiet?" Emily asked. Olivia looked up with worried eyes. "Mom, we heard you and Dad last night." A dull ache pierced Emily's chest. Mason added in a small voice, "Are you mad at him?" Emily took a slow breath and crouched to meet their eyes. "I'm not mad. I'm just tired." The kids exchanged a look, and Olivia wrapped her arms around her mother. "We can help you," Olivia whispered. It was a simple sentence, but it brought tears to Emily's eyes faster than anything else, because those words she had waited years to hear, didn't come from her husband. They came from her children. Michael watches and something hits him. As the kids hugged their mom, Michael stood by the kitchen doorway watching. And for the first time in a long time, he really saw it. The way Olivia leaned into her mother. The way Mason rested his head on Emily's shoulder. The way Emily still smiled at them, even while breaking inside. She carried them. Emotionally, physically, spiritually. And he realized he hadn't been carrying anything. Something twisted painfully inside him. Regret, fear, shame, but also awakening. A shift Emily didn't expect. Later that morning, when she reached for the laundry basket, Michael gently stopped her. "I'll do it," he said quietly. She looked at him skeptically. "You don't have to." "I need to," he interrupted. Emily said nothing, watching him pick up the basket awkwardly, not quite knowing how to sort the clothes. He wasn't perfect. He was confused, clumsy, and late. But he was trying, really trying this time. And for the first time in months, Emily felt the smallest flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The house felt unusually still that afternoon. Emily stood by the kitchen sink, rinsing a few dishes, the kids' cereal bowls, a coffee mug Michael had left half-filled, the spoon someone forgot to rinse. A normal chore, something she'd done thousands of times. But today, she felt like she was watching her own life from a distance. Ever since last night's argument, something invisible hung in the air, like a quiet fog settling between everyone in the house. Michael keeps trying. Emily didn't expect much from Michael's morning attempt. Apologies were easy. Change was not. But when she walked into the living room, she saw him kneeling on the floor, sorting laundry by color. He kept pausing to look at each shirt, trying to remember if red could go with darks or if it needed its own pile. He looked frustrated but determined. When he noticed her standing there, he gave an embarrassed smile. "Turns out," he said awkwardly, "laundry is a lot more complicated than I thought." Emily didn't laugh. Her heart softened just a little. "You don't have to do all that, Michael." His expression shifted. Something deeper than guilt flickered across his face. "I know," he said quietly, "but that's the problem. You've been doing it all even when you shouldn't have to." He returned to sorting clothes, his brows furrowed as if this simple task meant something more to him, as if he was sorting through years of neglect piece by piece. a conversation Olivia didn't mean to start. Later, Emily walked upstairs to check on the kids. Olivia was sitting on her bed, legs crossed, writing in her notebook. The moment Emily walked in, Olivia quickly shut it. Emily frowned gently. "Everything okay?" Olivia hesitated. Then she sighed, shoulders sinking. "I just don't like when you and Dad fight." Emily sat beside her, smoothing her daughter's hair. "We weren't fighting. We were talking loudly." Olivia shook her head. "Mom, I know what a fight sounds like." Emily blinked, stunned by her daughter's honesty. Olivia continued, her voice soft but steady. "You do everything. You're always tired. And Dad, he doesn't help you the way he should." Emily wasn't prepared to hear that from her own child. "Sweetheart, it's complicated." Olivia shook her head again. "It's not complicated. It's unfair." Those words hit Emily harder than anything Michael had ever said, because it was the truth, coming from the one person she never wanted to burden. Olivia leaned against her mother's shoulder. "I don't want you to be sad anymore," she whispered. "I want you to be happy too." Emily felt tears rising, and she pulled Olivia into a hug. "I'm trying, honey. I really am. Mason has his own way of understanding things." As Emily walked into Mason's room next, she found him building a little Lego structure, a square house with a tiny figure inside. He looked up at her. "Mom, why were you crying last night?" Her breath caught. "I wasn't crying." He tilted his head, unconvinced. "You were. And I don't like when you cry." Emily knelt beside him. "Mason, grown-ups get sad sometimes. It's normal." He picked up the Lego figure and placed it gently in her hand. "This is you," he said. "She has a house, but she needs help. So I made helpers." He placed 2 tiny Lego kits next to the figure. Emily stared at the little creation, her heart squeezing with a mix of pain and warmth. Children see things so clearly. They see the truth adults pretend not to notice. Dinner. A small shift in the atmosphere. By evening, the house began to feel slightly different. Michael cooked dinner. Not a fancy meal, just spaghetti with Jared sauce, but he kept checking the pot like it was the most important task in the world. He set the table carefully, placed the kids' cups where they always sat, even wiped the table twice. Emily watched him from the doorway, unsure if she should feel relieved or cautious. When they sat down, Michael cleared his throat. "I know I haven't been the best partner," he began. Olivia and Mason stopped eating. Emily tensed. "But I want to try. Not just today because things feel rough. I want to try because I miss being part of this family the right way." Emily didn't answer. Not yet. She needed time, not promises. But dinner felt less heavy than breakfast. There was a soft warmth in the room, fragile but real. A quiet moment before bed. When the kids went to sleep, Emily sat alone in the living room. Her mind swirled with the day's events. Michael trying. Olivia speaking her truth. Mason offering comfort through toys. Her own heart shifting in ways she didn't expect. Michael approached slowly. "Emily, can we talk?" She nodded, though her chest tightened. He sat beside her but didn't reach for her. "Not this time. I know I broke something in us," he said, voice low. "And I know saying sorry isn't enough. I want to earn your trust back." Emily looked at him then. For the first time in months, she didn't see excuses in his eyes. She saw fear of losing her, and hope that he still had a chance. "I don't know where to start," Michael said honestly, "but I'm not walking away from this. I'm here." Emily inhaled shakily. "Then prove it." He nodded, and for the first time in a long time she believed he might try. Emily woke up before her alarm. Not out of stress this time, but out of an unfamiliar calm. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel that immediate heaviness pressing down on her chest. Just quiet. Stillness. A breath she didn't know she was holding. She slowly sat up, rubbed her eyes, and listened. The house was peaceful. No kids fighting over cereal. No doors slamming. No hurried footsteps. A soft clinking sound drifted from downstairs. Someone was in the kitchen. Michael's unexpected effort. Emily walked down the hallway tentatively, half expecting chaos. But when she reached the bottom of the stairs, she froze. Michael was standing at the counter, hair a mess, t-shirt wrinkled, wearing an apron he probably didn't know how to tie properly. He was cooking. Real cooking. Not microwaving. Not pouring cereal. He was whisking eggs, flipping pancakes, burning half of them but trying again. He didn't notice her at first. He was humming off-key but peaceful. Focused, careful, present. 2 plates were already set. Kid-friendly pancakes shaped like uneven hearts. Emily's heart tightened. He wasn't perfect. But this was the first time in a long time he did something without being asked. Without expecting a thank you. Without making her feel guilty. Just trying. And trying loudly enough for her to see it. A small moment that felt big. When Michael finally noticed her, he startled. "Oh, hey," he said, wiping his hands nervously on a towel. "I made breakfast. For you. And the kids. I didn't want you to wake up doing everything again." Emily said nothing. She didn't know what to say. He bit his lip. "I know I've said that before. But today I wanted you to actually feel it." He placed a plate in front of her. 2 imperfect pancakes, a few strawberries, and a shaky attempt at whipped cream. It wasn't pretty, but it felt more sincere than any bouquet of flowers he had ever bought her. She sat down slowly. Michael hovered, waiting for her reaction like a nervous child presenting a school project. Emily cut a small piece and tasted it. Warm, a little burnt, a little uneven, perfect in its own way. "You're getting better," she said softly. Michael exhaled like he had been holding his breath for hours. The kids joined in. Olivia and Mason ran down the stairs next, both stopping in disbelief when they saw their dad cooking. Mason whispered loudly, "Dad? In the kitchen." Olivia giggled. "Is the world ending?" Michael threw them both a dramatic glare. "Haha, funny." But he served their plates with a smile anyway. When the 4 of them sat together, something shifted in the room. Not dramatically, not magically, just subtly. Like the air felt lighter. Like the walls weren't closing in anymore. Like the family, broke and hurting, was still quietly trying. Emily took a deep breath. She hadn't realized how desperately she needed moments like this. A day spent differently. After breakfast, Michael surprised everyone again. "I'm taking the kids out for a bit," he announced. "You stay home. Rest. Do something for yourself." Emily blinked, confused. "What? Why?" "Because you never rest," he said simply. "And because I want to do more than apologize. I want to handle the things you've carried alone." Olivia grabbed her coat excitedly. Mason jumped up and down like it was a holiday. Emily stared at them helplessly. "What am I supposed to do here all alone?" Michael gave a soft smile. "Whatever you want. Something that makes you happy." She didn't even know what that was anymore. But when the door closed behind them and silence filled the house, she realized something. She didn't feel abandoned. She felt free. For the first time in years. Rediscovering herself. Emily wandered around the quiet house, unsure where to begin. She walked into the living room, touched the couch gently, then moved to the dining room. Her eyes landed on something she hadn't touched in years. Her sketchbook, tucked behind the bookshelf, wrapped in dust and forgotten memories. She picked it up. Her fingers trembled. She used to love drawing, sketching landscapes, capturing moments, pouring emotions onto paper. But somewhere between being a wife, a mother, and an unseen pillar of her home, she forgot who she was. She opened the sketchbook slowly. Old pages greeted her. Beautiful drawings, unfinished ideas, raw sketches from late nights she once stole for herself. Something inside her stirred. She grabbed a pencil, sat down near the window where sunlight spilled across the floor, and she began to draw. Her hand shook at first, but soon it flowed. Lines became shapes. Shapes became emotions. Emotions became something alive on the page. For the first time in a long, long time, Emily felt warmth that came from herself. Not from giving, not from caring, not from holding everyone together, but from remembering who she was. The family returns. When the door opened hours later, Emily was still drawing. Olivia and Mason ran in, laughing, holding a small bag of pastries. "Mom!" Olivia shouted. "We brought you something." Mason jumped beside her. Look, Dad let us pick your favorite. Emily smiled, really smiled, as she closed her sketchbook gently. Michael stepped forward, eyes softening when he noticed the pencil still in her hand. You were drawing? He asked quietly. She nodded. Yeah, I forgot how good it feels. Michael swallowed hard. His voice almost cracked. I want you to feel that more often. Emily looked at him. For the first time since the argument, she didn't see a man failing her. She saw a man learning. Slowly, painfully, honestly, learning how to love her the right way. The rain had started slowly at dusk, gentle drops brushing against the windows like a whisper. Emily stood in the kitchen, watching the way the water slid down the glass in uneven lines. There was something calming about it. Something steady. Something honest. It felt like the kind of night where people either fall apart or come together. She wasn't sure which direction her own family was heading. The kids feel the shift. Olivia and Mason were curled up on the living room rug, coloring quietly. No chaos. No shouting. Just a soft calm that made Emily's heart ache a little. Children could sense everything. The tension. The relief. The healing. Sometimes faster than adults could. Mom, Olivia said, looking up. Can we watch a movie tonight? Like the old days. Emily hesitated. The old days meant something different to everyone in the family. But the hopeful spark in Olivia's eyes made her nod. Sure, she said softly. Pick one. Mason jumped up instantly, grabbing the remote as if he'd been waiting for days to ask this. Emily set popcorn in the microwave, the buttery smell slowly filling the room. The kids giggled over which movie to choose. It all felt almost normal, but just almost, because Michael wasn't home yet, and that empty space on the couch felt louder than any laughter in the room. Michael walks in different this time. The front door opened quietly. Michael stepped inside, rain droplets clinging to his jacket. He looked tired, but not from work. He looked tired from thinking, from trying, from wanting to get things right. He froze when he saw the kids setting up the movie. What's all this? He asked gently. Movie night. Mason shouted. Come sit with us. Michael looked at Emily before answering. His eyes asked something silently. Is it okay? Do I still belong here? Emily hesitated, then nodded faintly. Join us, she said. Something relieved and soft broke across his face. He slipped off his wet jacket, placed it carefully on the hanger, and walked over to them, like someone walking into sacred territory. The smallest things matter. They settled onto the couch. Olivia sat on one side, Mason on the floor with a blanket, Emily at the end of the couch. Michael sat somewhere in the middle, not too close, not too far, respectful of invisible boundaries. The movie started, something nostalgic the kids loved. Animated, comforting, familiar. Halfway through, Mason crawled up and sat beside his dad, leaning his head on Michael's arm. Michael froze, not wanting to break the moment. Then slowly, gently, he wrapped an arm around his son. Emily watched, not with jealousy, not with resentment, but with something softer, something she didn't expect. Gratitude, because Mason needed this too, and Michael was finally giving it. Quiet conversation in the kitchen. When the kids finally dozed off on the couch, Emily stood up to put the popcorn bowl away. Michael followed her, nervous but trying not to look it. He leaned against the counter, hands buried into the pockets of his jeans. Tonight felt good, he said quietly. Emily rinsed the bowl, keeping her eyes on the sink. It did. I missed this, he admitted. I missed us. Her hands froze under the warm water. The words were gentle, but they carried weight. Old memories, old wounds, and old hopes she wasn't ready to open again. She dried her hands and turned to face him. Michael, I'm trying to let things heal, but healing doesn't happen in a week. I know, he said quickly. I'm not asking for everything to go back to how it was. I just want you to see that I'm changing. His voice cracked. I want the kids to see it. I want myself to see it. Emily softened. For the first time, it didn't feel like Michael was trying to fix things so he could feel better about himself. It felt like he was trying to fix things so they could feel whole again. The question she never expected him to ask. Michael took a breath. "Emily, what do you want?" The question hit her louder than any apology. No one had asked her that in years. Not once. Not her kids. Not extended family. Not friends. Not even herself. She stood there stunned. I don't know," she whispered. "That's okay," he said softly. "I want to help you figure it out." Emily looked at him, really looked. He wasn't begging. He wasn't demanding. He wasn't trying to win the argument from last night. He was just present. For her. For the kids. For himself. For the family he once took for granted. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. "I want to feel seen again, Michael. Not just needed. Not just useful. Seen." Michael swallowed hard. "I'll spend the rest of my life learning how to do that if you let me." A small step forward. Emily didn't promise anything, but she nodded. And in that nod, soft, fragile trembling, something shifted between them. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But possibility. A small doorway opening again. After years of being shut. A place where love might grow back. If handled gently enough. Michael exhaled, relieved. Emily leaned against the counter, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Hope that didn't hurt. Emily woke to the soft glow of morning sunlight spilling through the curtains. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. She padded barefoot to the kitchen, expecting to find Michael already there, coffee in hand, scrolling his phone as usual. But the kitchen was empty. A small note on the counter caught her eye. Michael's handwriting, neat but slightly rushed. "Out with the kids. Be back by lunch. Enjoy your morning." She smiled faintly, a mixture of warmth and skepticism. She moved to the living room, brushing a layer of dust off the armchair, and sat down with her sketchbook. It felt strange, sacred almost, to have this time entirely to herself. Her pencil hovered over the page before touching it, as if testing whether the world still allowed her to create. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, rustling the last golden leaves clinging stubbornly to the branches. Emily let her pencil fall, letting her hand draw lines without plan, without pressure. Just motion. Just release. Hours passed. The sunlight shifted, casting shadows across the pages of her sketches. She drew faces, trees, the curve of a river she remembered from her childhood. Somewhere between the lines, she felt pieces of herself she had forgotten start to emerge. A knock at the door startled her. She closed the sketchbook quickly. Michael stood there, damp hair sticking to his forehead, Mason clutching a small bag of pastries, Olivia trailing behind with a scarf wrapped around her neck. "Mom, we brought breakfast," Mason exclaimed, holding up a warm, flaky croissant. Emily laughed softly, her first real laugh in days. She set the sketchbook aside and opened the door fully. Michael stepped in, holding umbrellas and shaking off the rain. His eyes softened when he saw her smile. "Looks like you've been busy," he said, nodding toward the sketches. Emily shrugged lightly. "Busy finding myself again." They ate together, the simple breakfast tasting richer than any meal she could remember. No phones. No interruptions. Just the quiet, warm rhythm of family around a table. After breakfast, Michael offered to take the kids out again. "Go rest or draw or do whatever you want. I'll handle things here." Emily hesitated but nodded. As they left, she felt a strange combination of freedom and responsibility. She was alone in the house, but not lonely. She was free to breathe, free to create, free to remember who she had been before the weight of the household pressed down on her. She returned to the sketchbook and pencil, letting her hand move across the page with deliberate care. Each stroke was a small rebellion against years of invisibility. Each line was a reclaiming of herself. When the children returned in the afternoon, muddy shoes and bright eyes, Emily was still sketching. They crowded around, peeking over her shoulder. "These are amazing, Mom," Olivia exclaimed. Mason nodded eagerly. "Can I try?" Emily handed him a pencil. "Of course. Let's draw together." For the first time in a long time, the living room was filled not with tension or silence, but with movement and laughter. Michael watched from the doorway, a soft smile on his face, realizing that progress was measured in these small shared moments. He didn't speak, he didn't need to. His presence alone was enough. Emily looked around at her family, at the sketches, at the sunlight pooling across the floor, and for the first time in years, felt a steady pulse of hope. She was still herself. They were still a family. And maybe, just maybe, the hardest battles didn't have to be fought alone. Emily sat at the kitchen table, the afternoon sun warm on her shoulders, flipping through her sketchbook. The pages were filled with her quiet confessions, memories, and dreams. All the things she tucked away to care for everyone else. She traced a line of a river she had drawn days ago, and for a moment, she let herself feel proud of the small world she had created on paper. The front door creaked and Michael stepped in, carrying Mason in his arms while Olivia clutched a small bouquet of wildflowers. Their cheeks were flushed from the cold, hair messy from the wind, but their smiles were bright. "Look what we found," Olivia said, holding up the flowers. "For you, Mom." Emily's chest tightened. She knelt to accept the bouquet, inhaling the faint, earthy scent. "Thank you, sweethearts. They're beautiful." Michael set Mason down gently. "We thought you might like a little nature in the house while we're out," he said softly. Emily nodded, tears prickling her eyes. She realized then that these small gestures, the flowers, the quiet efforts, the moments of thoughtfulness, were what healing looked like. Not grand declarations or dramatic apologies, but consistent, gentle acts of care. The children rushed off to show her the small wooden cabin they had built in the yard, laughing and shrieking with joy. Emily watched them, her heart swelling with a complicated mixture of love, gratitude, and relief. Michael lingered in the doorway. "You've been different these last few days," he said quietly. Emily looked up from her sketchbook. "I've been remembering who I am," she replied, "and realizing that being a mother doesn't mean losing myself." He nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "I see that, and I want to help you hold on to that." Emily set her pencil down. "I know you do, and I see you trying. That matters more than words." They shared a long look, unspoken understanding passing between them. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was no tension, no silence pressing heavy against their chest. Just a quiet, steady acknowledgement that they were both learning how to be present, not only for the children but for each other. The rain started again outside, gentle at first, then steady. Emily smiled softly, watching droplets run down the window pane, reflecting the sunlight in little prisms. The house felt alive with small motions, the laughter of the children returning from the yard, the quiet footsteps of Michael moving about, the soft scratch of her pencil on paper. And Emily let herself feel it all, the relief, the hope, the quiet joy of being seen. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She was here. She mattered. And maybe, just maybe, they could all find their way back to each other piece by piece, day by day. She picked up her pencil again and began to draw. The evening stretched long and quiet, the kind of stillness that invited reflection. Emily sat at the window, sketchbook open, pencil poised. Outside, the wind shook the last few leaves from the trees, and the faint glow of streetlights shimmered on the wet pavement. She drew slowly, deliberately, letting her hand capture shapes and shadows, lines that had long been buried under the weight of daily life. Footsteps approached. Michael appeared in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of tea, steam curling lazily into the air. He offered one to her without a word. Emily accepted it, warmth seeping into her hands, and nodded her thanks. He sat quietly beside her, neither of them needing conversation. Sometimes presence said more than words ever could. Outside, Mason and Olivia ran around in the yard, wrapped in blankets, chasing each other in bursts of laughter that drifted faintly through the open window. Emily smiled softly. "I'm proud of you," Michael said finally, his voice low, sincere. Emily looked at him, caught off guard. "For what?" she asked, half teasing, half curious. "For everything you've carried, and for still finding yourself in the process," he said. "I see you. I've been blind, but I see you now." Her eyes brimmed with tears. She took a sip of her tea, letting the warmth settle inside her. "Thank you," she whispered. Not just for his words, but for finally being seen, for the small shifts that made the house feel less heavy, less lonely. The kids' laughter faded as they tired, and Michael rose to tuck them into bed. Emily watched from the window, feeling a rare, gentle peace. When he returned, He sat beside her again, this time closer, his hand resting lightly on hers. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The quiet understanding between them was enough. Emily looked back at her sketchbook, then at the rain-streaked window, then at Michael, and felt something she hadn't in a long time: hope. Hope that love could be repaired, that family could be rebuilt, and that even in the quiet moments, small gestures could carry the weight of change. She drew another line on the page, smiling to herself, and for the first time in years she felt whole. The night deepened and the house settled into a gentle, almost reverent quiet. Emily remained at the kitchen table, her sketchbook open, though her pencil had paused mid-stroke. She stared at the rain sliding down the windows, thinking of the past weeks, the tension, the silence, the nights of worry and sleepless hours. Michael appeared in the doorway, holding a small plate of leftover pancakes from breakfast, now slightly cold. He set it in front of her silently, then poured himself a cup of tea. She looked up at him, surprised by the gesture. "I thought you might be hungry," he said quietly. "Even artists need to eat." Emily smiled, a faint but genuine curve of her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. He sat across from her, their eyes meeting in a calm, wordless exchange. For so long they had existed in the same house but on separate planes, aware of each other but never truly connected. Tonight it felt different. Tonight he was here. Truly here. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows and carrying the scent of wet earth inside. Emily took a slow breath, letting it fill her lungs. She set her pencil down and reached across the table, lightly touching his hand. Michael hesitated for a moment, then covered her fingers with his own. The touch was small, quiet, but it carried a promise. Not of perfection, not of immediate change, but of effort, presence, and care. They sat together in silence for a long time, letting the calm of the night seep into their bones. For the first time in what felt like forever, Emily allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the cracks in their family could be filled. Not perfectly, but with patience, attention, and love. Somewhere, Mason and Olivia slept peacefully, unaware of the quiet reconciliation happening just down the hall. And Emily, with her sketchbook closed and her heart a little lighter, finally felt it too. That fragile, precious thing called hope. The next morning came quietly, with pale sunlight filtering through thin clouds. Emily woke earlier than usual, but instead of rushing through chores or worrying about the day ahead, she lingered in bed for a few moments, listening to the soft hum of the house. Downstairs, she found Michael at the kitchen counter, carefully preparing breakfast for the kids. The smell of eggs and toast filled the air. He looked up and offered her a warm smile, a small but genuine acknowledgement of her presence. Emily poured herself a cup of coffee and sat at the table, feeling a rare sense of calm. Mason and Olivia appeared moments later, still rubbing sleep from their eyes, but their energy was light and joyful, a reflection of the small shift happening in the household. They ate together without rushing, sharing stories, laughter, and small jokes. Michael even managed to spill syrup on the table, prompting a round of giggles from the kids and a soft laugh from Emily. It was ordinary, yet in its ordinariness it felt extraordinary. After breakfast, Emily returned to her sketchbook, but this time the children gathered around her, asking to draw alongside her. She handed them pencils and for a while they created together, her sketches intermingling with theirs, laughter and chatter filling the room. Michael watched quietly from the doorway, occasionally offering guidance or helping Olivia with the tricky shape. Emily glanced up at him, catching his eye, and for the first time in years, she felt a deep, unspoken understanding between them. No grand declarations were made, no promises shouted, just small, meaningful gestures. Breakfast prepared, laughter shared, presents given and received. And in those simple acts, Emily realized that healing didn't need to be dramatic. It could live in the quiet moments, in the ordinary days, and in the slow rebuilding of trust and love. She returned her gaze to the sketchbook, pencil moving steadily across the page, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. The quiet certainty that they were, finally, on the path toward something better. The afternoon sun slanted through the living room windows, casting long golden streaks across the floor. Emily sat on the couch with her sketchbook open, her pencil moving freely as she traced lines and shapes she hadn't thought of in years. The children were quietly playing nearby, their soft laughter blending with the distant hum of the heater. Michael entered the room carrying a small stack of board games. He paused, watching Emily with a gentle smile before setting them down on the coffee table. "Want a break from drawing?" he asked. Emily looked up, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Maybe. What did you have in mind?" He shrugged, playful yet hesitant. "Something fun. Something together." Olivia and Mason perked up instantly, eager for a new game. Michael pulled up a chair, and soon they were all gathered around the coffee table, pieces scattered, rules debated, and laughter growing louder with each turn. Emily watched them, heart swelling. She realized that the weight she had carried for so long, the constant effort, the silent sacrifices, was finally being shared. Not completely, not all at once, but the first steps were being taken. When Mason accidentally knocked over a game piece, Michael scooped him up and whispered something that made the boy giggle uncontrollably. Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. This was the first time in years she had seen Michael actively participating, not merely existing in the same space. The game ended with no clear winner, just laughter, teasing, and the kind of joyful chaos that felt like home. Emily leaned back against the couch, taking it all in, the sketches, the children, the husband who was finally trying. She picked up her pencil again, inspired not just by her own creativity, but by the scene around her. The lines she drew now felt infused with warmth, patience, and hope. And for the first time in a long time, Emily realized that healing didn't come from perfection. It came from moments like this, messy, imperfect, filled with effort and love, building slowly into something strong enough to last. Evening fell slowly, the sky outside painted in shades of deep orange and soft purple. Emily sat near the window with her sketchbook, pencil moving rhythmically across the page. The children were tucked into bed after a quiet bath, and the house hummed with a rare, gentle calm. Michael appeared behind her, carrying a steaming mug of cocoa. He set it beside her and leaned against the windowsill, watching her work in silence for a moment. "You've been at that for hours," he said softly. Emily looked up, her eyes meeting his. "It helps me think and remember who I am." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I see that, and I want to help you hold on to it. I know I've made it hard for you in the past." She smiled faintly. "You're trying now. That counts for something." Michael shifted closer and gestured to the empty chair beside her. "Sit with me." She moved over, allowing him to settle next to her. They shared the quiet moment, listening to the soft patter of rain beginning against the windows. The world outside seemed to pause, offering a small reprieve from the weight of yesterday and the worries of tomorrow. Emily tilted her head slightly, resting her hand on the open sketchbook. "I didn't realize how much I needed moments like this," she said quietly. Michael's gaze softened. "Neither did I. I think I've been learning what it means to be part of this family. Not just living in it, but really being present." They sat together, the silence filled with understanding and unspoken apologies. Emily sipped her cocoa, feeling the warmth spread through her body, and for the first time in years, she felt something steady inside her, a fragile, growing sense of peace. Outside, the rain fell steadily, washing the world clean. Inside, Emily's pencil traced lines on the page, the rhythm echoing the quiet heartbeat of a family beginning to heal. Slowly, carefully, and together. The next morning arrived crisp and clear, the kind of early light that made everything feel new. Emily woke to the sound of birds outside the window and the faint clatter of dishes from the kitchen. She stretched, feeling a lightness she hadn't felt in weeks, and quietly made her way downstairs. Michael was at the counter, flipping pancakes with careful concentration. Mason and Olivia sat at the table, still in their pajamas, eyes bright and eager. "Good morning, Mom," Olivia chirped, sliding a plate toward her. Emily smiled, letting the warmth of the moment sink in. For the first time in a long time, the house felt alive, not because of activity or noise, but because of presence and intention. Michael glanced at her with a small smile. "We thought you might like a calm morning. No rush, no chores, just breakfast." She nodded, touched by the gesture. "Thank you. This feels nice." They ate together, pancakes slightly uneven but made with care, syrup dripping in the kind of small chaos that somehow felt perfect. Laughter and chatter filled the room, natural and unforced. After breakfast, Emily returned to her sketchbook, this time joined by the children. Mason and Olivia pulled chairs up beside her, pencils in hand, eager to draw alongside their mother. Michael lingered nearby, tidying up but occasionally glancing over with a quiet smile, proud of the small moments he had helped create. Emily let her pencil move freely across the page, sketching not just lines and shapes, but the feeling of connection in the room, the warmth, the laughter, and the sense that they were slowly rebuilding the life they had almost taken for granted. She realized then that healing wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic apologies. It was about small, consistent acts of care, shared moments, and being truly present for each other. And as she drew, surrounded by her children and watched quietly by Michael, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope, not for perfection, but for steady, patient growth, and the quiet rebuilding of love, trust, and family. Late that afternoon, Emily stepped onto the back porch, breathing in the crisp, clean air. The yard was quiet now, the children having retreated indoors after a long day of laughter and play, and Michael was finishing up some small repairs on the porch swing. She leaned against the railing watching him work. The way he concentrated, the way he moved with purpose, it struck her that he was finally noticing the details, the small things that made a house a home, a family a family. Michael glanced up and caught her watching him. "Hey," he said softly, wiping his hands on a towel. "Hey," Emily replied, smiling faintly. He approached and stood beside her, both of them silent for a moment, just listening to the wind rustling the leaves and the faint hum of distant traffic. "You've changed," Emily said quietly, more to herself than to him. Michael looked at her, puzzled for a second. "I think we've both changed," he said. "I'm trying to be better and I see you trying too." She nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. "I'm learning to let go of carrying everything by myself," she admitted. "And you're learning to carry some of it with me." He offered a small, tentative smile. "Exactly. That's the idea." They stood together for a while, watching the sky shift as the sun began to set. Orange and pink streaked across the horizon, a quiet reminder that each day ended, but each day also began again. Michael reached out, taking her hand gently. "We're not perfect," he said softly, "but maybe that's okay. Maybe trying together is enough." Emily looked down at their hands intertwined and felt a deep, steady warmth spread through her chest. She nodded. "Yes," she whispered, "together." And in that moment, standing on the porch as the evening light faded, Emily felt a sense of quiet hope. Not everything was fixed, not yet, but they were moving forward. Slowly, carefully, with intention and care. And that was enough. Night had fallen, and the house was wrapped in a comforting silence. Emily sat at the edge of the couch, sketchbook open, her pencil moving with a calm purpose. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint scent of rain from earlier in the day. Michael stepped into the room quietly, carrying a blanket. He draped it over her shoulders without a word, settling into the chair across from her. Emily looked up and smiled softly, grateful for the small gesture. No apologies, no explanations, just presence. The children were asleep upstairs, and for the first time in weeks, the house felt fully still. Emily let her hand trace delicate lines on the paper, capturing the shadows of the room, the soft glow of the lamp, the way the evening felt heavy with both calm and possibility. Michael watched her, noticing how absorbed she was, how alive her focus made her appear. "You've been drawing a lot lately," he said quietly. "I like seeing you like this." Emily paused, meeting his eyes. "It feels good to be seen. Not just needed, not just relied upon. Seen." He nodded slowly, as if finally understanding the weight of her words. "I want to see you more. Really see you. I know I've failed at that before, but I'm learning." She smiled faintly, the tension in her chest loosening. "It means more than I can say." They stayed like that for a while, the quiet between them heavy with unspoken understanding. No promises of perfection, no dramatic gestures. Just two people slowly finding their way back to each other, learning to be present in the small, ordinary moments that mattered most. As Emily returned her gaze to her sketchbook, pencil moving once again, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The house was quiet, the children asleep, Michael beside her, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that healing, even if slow and imperfect, was truly possible. The following morning, sunlight spilled gently across the kitchen table, illuminating the sketches Emily had left overnight. She stirred her coffee slowly, savoring the warmth in her hands and the rare sense of calm that seemed to have settled over the house. Michael appeared carrying a tray with breakfast, toast, scrambled eggs, and 2 mugs of coffee. He set it down in front of her with a quiet smile. "Thought you might like a peaceful start to the day," he said. Emily looked at him, her chest tightening with the mix of gratitude and cautious hope. "Thank you," she whispered. The gesture, small and simple, meant more than she could explain. The children appeared moments later, still rubbing sleep from their eyes, excited to start their day. Mason and Olivia helped clear the table and set up a small craft project Emily had planned. The house buzzed quietly with soft laughter and chatter, ordinary yet extraordinary in its simplicity. Emily picked up her sketchbook again, and the children gathered around. She guided them gently, letting them draw alongside her, sharing tips and celebrating their creativity. Michael stayed nearby, folding laundry, but he glanced over often, offering encouragement and occasional guidance. At one point, Olivia looked up and said, "Mom, it's nice when we all do things together like this." Emily's heart swelled. "Yes," she replied softly, "it is." Michael's gaze met hers briefly, a quiet acknowledgement passing between them. No words were needed. Later, when the kids ran outside to play, Emily remained at the table, pencil in hand, sketching lines that felt lighter than before. Each stroke carried the warmth of connection, the quiet joy of shared moments, and the hope of a slowly mending family. She realized that healing wasn't always dramatic or obvious. It often lived in these small, patient moments. Being seen, being present, and caring enough to try every day. And as the sun climbed higher, spilling golden light across the room, Emily felt a deep, steady hope take root in her chest. The family she loved was still imperfect, but they were moving forward. Together. Evening arrived quietly, the sky painted in soft shades of purple and pink. Emily sat by the window, sketchbook open on her lap, pencil moving slowly across the page. The rain from earlier had left tiny puddles on the driveway, reflecting the fading sunlight like scattered jewels. Michael appeared with a steaming mug of tea, setting it beside her without a word. He leaned against the windowsill, watching her work with a calm attentiveness that had become rare in their home. Emily glanced up and offered a small smile, appreciating the silent support. "Still drawing?" he asked softly. "Yes," she replied. "It helps me think. Helps me remember who I am." He nodded, stepping closer. "I want to help you hold on to that. I know I haven't always been present, but I'm learning. I want to be better, for you, for the kids, for us." Emily paused, her pencil hovering above the paper. She felt the sincerity in his voice, the weight of his words balanced with the gentle actions he now showed every day. "I see that," she said quietly, "and it matters more than you know." The children's laughter floated up from their rooms, reminding them both of the fragile beauty of ordinary moments. Emily closed her sketchbook for a brief pause, savoring the stillness of the room and the presence of her husband beside her. Michael reached out and took her hand, fingers lacing gently with hers. They didn't speak. Words weren't necessary. The quiet connection, the steady presence, the willingness to try, that was enough. For the first time in years, Emily felt a profound sense of peace. The house was alive with love, effort, and care, no longer heavy with resentment or silence. And as she returned to her sketchbook, pencil gliding across the page, she felt it clearly. Healing was possible, even if slow. And this time she believed that they would all find their way together. The next morning arrived soft and golden, sunlight spilling through the curtains and casting warm patterns on the floor. Emily stretched, savoring the rare quiet that filled the house, and made her way to the kitchen, her sketchbook tucked under her arm. Michael was already there, flipping pancakes with careful concentration. Mason and Olivia sat at the table, brushing crumbs from their pajamas and chatting quietly. The scene felt ordinary, but Emily felt the extraordinary weight of it. Peace, laughter, and a sense of togetherness she hadn't experienced in years. "Good morning," she said softly, taking a seat. "Morning," Michael replied, offering her a small warm smile. He placed a plate of pancakes in front of her, slightly lopsided but made with care. "For you," he said simply. Emily's chest tightened. The gesture was small, yet meaningful, a quiet acknowledgement of her presence and effort. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling warmth spread through her body. The kids chattered about plans for the day, and Emily found herself joining in, her laughter blending naturally with theirs. When the pancakes were finished, she opened her sketchbook again, inviting Mason and Olivia to draw alongside her. They crowded around the table, pencils in hand, creating a collage of lines, shapes, and colors that reflected the small but growing joy in the household. Michael stayed nearby, tidying up, occasionally offering tips or encouragement. Emily glanced at him, catching his eye, and felt a deep, quiet understanding pass between them. No apologies needed, no promises shouted, just presence, patience, and consistent effort. For the first time in years, Emily realized that healing didn't demand grand gestures. It thrived in small, ordinary moments. Laughter shared, hands held, creativity encouraged, and care expressed in ways both subtle and deliberate. As sunlight continued to fill the room, Emily felt a steady, unwavering hope take root. The family was imperfect, but they were together, moving forward slowly, intentionally, and with love. And that, she knew, was enough. Late that afternoon, Emily stepped onto the back porch, breathing in the crisp, cool air. The yard was quiet, the children inside playing quietly after a long morning of games and drawing, and Michael was near the swing, fixing a loose chain with careful attention. She watched him for a moment, noticing how different he seemed, present, patient, and attentive. Not perfect, but making the effort, and that mattered more than anything. Michael looked up, catching her gaze. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," she replied, a small smile forming on her lips. He gestured toward the swing. "Want to sit for a while?" Emily nodded, and they both settled onto the porch swing, the gentle creak of the chains filling the quiet. They watched the sky shift from soft orange to deep purple, letting the calm settle between them. "You've changed," Emily said quietly, almost to herself. Michael shifted, thoughtful. "We've both changed," he replied. "I'm learning to be present, to actually notice. And you've been learning to let yourself be seen." She nodded, her chest tightening with emotion. It feels strange in a good way, to not have to carry everything alone. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We're learning together. Slowly, but together." They stayed like that, swaying gently in silence, the weight of past struggles giving way to quiet hope. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest, realizing that healing didn't come from dramatic apologies or perfect moments. It came from showing up, consistently, for each other, in ordinary ways. And in that quiet evening, Emily allowed herself to believe. Maybe they could rebuild their family, step by step, with patience, care, and love guiding every move. Night had settled over the house, a deep velvety calm filling every room. Emily sat at the kitchen table, sketchbook open, pencil moving slowly across the page. The faint hum of the heater and the occasional creak of the settling house were the only sounds. Michael appeared, carrying 2 mugs of warm cocoa. He placed one in front of her, then took the chair across the table. They shared a quiet glance, and Emily felt the simple comfort of being seen, not for what she did, but for who she was. "You've been drawing a lot lately," he said softly. "I needed it," Emily replied, "to remember who I am, beyond everything else." He nodded, thoughtful. "I see that, and I want to help you hold on to it. I know I haven't always been present, but I'm learning. I want to be better, for you, for the kids, for us." Emily's chest tightened with gratitude. "I see that, and it matters more than words can say," she whispered. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, carrying the faint scent of rain. Emily let her pencil move again, capturing the play of shadows on the page, the soft glow of the lamp, the stillness of the night. Michael watched quietly, simply being present, not trying to fix anything, just existing alongside her. When the children stirred in their sleep upstairs, Emily didn't worry. She realized that the household, the family, was slowly finding its rhythm again. Filled with small, consistent gestures, quiet understanding, and effort from everyone. As her pencil traced lines across the page, Emily felt a profound sense of hope. Healing was slow, imperfect, and often invisible, but it was happening. And for the first time in years, she truly believed that they could rebuild their family, one quiet, meaningful moment at a time. The house was still, bathed in the soft glow of early morning sunlight. Emily sat at the kitchen table, sketchbook closed beside her, sipping her coffee slowly. The air smelled faintly of fresh bread and the faint scent of rain from the night before. She looked around the room. Neatly stacked dishes, small traces of yesterday's laughter, a quiet peace that had been absent for far too long. The children appeared in their pajamas, rubbing their eyes, still sleepy but smiling. Mason carried a small toy car. Olivia held a worn stuffed animal. "Good morning, Mom," they chimed in unison. Emily smiled, warmth filling her chest. "Good morning, sweethearts." Michael entered behind them, carrying a tray with breakfast. He placed it on the table, offering her a warm look. "We thought we'd start the day right," he said softly. For a moment, Emily just looked at him, taking in the small but deliberate effort. Years of tension and neglect didn't vanish overnight, but these gestures, repeated and sincere, had begun to rebuild what was broken. They sat together, eating breakfast in quiet contentment. The children chattered about their plans for the day, laughing at small jokes, teasing each other lightly. Emily listened, her heart swelling with gratitude for this ordinary, yet extraordinary moment. After breakfast, the children ran outside to play, while Emily returned to her sketchbook. Michael lingered nearby, occasionally glancing over, offering gentle encouragement. The house was alive with small movements, laughter, and shared presence. Emily felt a sense of calm she hadn't known in years. She realized that healing didn't require perfection, dramatic apologies, or instant change. It lived in these quiet, consistent moments: presence, care, patience, and the willingness to try again and again. As the sunlight streamed through the windows, warming her face, Emily picked up her pencil once more. She drew the lines of her life, the children, Michael, herself, careful, deliberate, filled with hope. And for the first time in a long while, she felt it fully. That fragile, precious thing called peace. A family imperfect but slowly mending, hearts open, learning to love and be loved again. She smiled softly, knowing that the journey wasn't over, but that together they would face it, step by step, day by day, with hope guiding every move. The house was alive. The family was present. And Emily finally felt whole.